are willing to turn it on, it's helpful to me because I can see your faces and kind of make sure I'm not boring you too much. So let me just make sure we've got all 25. Hannah, are you with me? Are we all good?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here and we're all set.
Okay, good, 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 good. So welcome again. And I thought since this is, I think this might be, well, let me clarify. Um, I'm not really fully retiring at the end of the summer. I'm going to then go half time and work and be off 3 months and on 3 months. So I'm going to be doing Torah study for another couple of years, of course, and maybe far beyond on Zoom, but not quite as often and not quite in the same role. And so I want to spend just a little bit of time on the Torah portion today. But most of the time, just kind of opening it up for us to have a conversation about whatever you would like to discuss, talk about whatever's on your mind. But I do want to, first of all, take a quick look at the Torah portion. Now, I don't see Marty anywhere. Marty, are you with us? I think not. Okay. In that case, then, for those of you who have a tablet, a phone, or a book, we're starting a new book of the Torah, the fourth of the 5 books, Numbers, Bamidbar. So let's all just kind of turn to that. Let me get mine. So we're actually going to go Numbers, chapter 1, verse 1. And I think for the sake of time, I'll just kind of jump in here. So chapter 1, verse 1. Okay, everyone with me? Numbers 1:1. And just a quick point of clarification: the book in Hebrew is called Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. The book in English we refer to as the book of Numbers because that's sort of the first topic or subject within the book. It's just the same way Torah portions are named by the first non-formulaic word or two or three that are part of that Torah portion. So because we get right into taking a census, we refer to the book as the book of Numbers, but it's really in Hebrew Bamidbar, in the wilderness, and it's a kind of recounting of the wilderness experience. Okay, here we go. Let's say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Here we go. La'asok b'divrei Torah. So blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who commands us to busy ourselves with Torah. So here we go. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe b'midbar. So there you go. And God said to Moses, in the wilderness, Bamidbar, the wilderness of Sinai, Ba'ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting, B'echad Lachodesh, on the first day, Lachodesh Hasheni, of the second year, following the leaving of Egypt. And now we go to verse 2. This is such an interesting way of saying take a census. It's really not a great translation. The translation is take a census of the whole Israelite community. But the Hebrew is se'u et rosh. Lift up the heads. Lift up your head. Be counted. This is where the whole idea of a head count comes from. Se'u et rosh. Lift up your head. So this is literally where the idea of head count comes from. But let's use the English translation. Take a census of the whole Israelite community or company, Kol edat b'nei Yisrael l'mishpochtam leveit avotam b'mispar shemot kol zachar. So it goes on to say, it says the whole community of Israel, but really what's being counted here are the men of fighting age. Because obviously, before you're going to go in to conquer Canaan, you have to know what your troop strength is. So it's a little misleading to say it's a census of the entire Israelite community, when in fact, what we're doing is trying to assess troop strength here. Now, that's kind of what I want to talk about. Back when this census was taken, the notion was that only a limited number of people could fight for the Jewish people, could be warriors for the Jewish people. And those were the men of fighting age. Thankfully, that's changed. And every single person on this Zoom has the ability to lift up our head and be counted and be a warrior of some kind or another for the Jewish people and for Israel. So if I were giving the sermon tomorrow morning, which I'm not, and you'll see my Shabbat message in a little while, this to me is really the significant evolution of this Torah portion. Is now, obviously, women count. You've heard me say before, I think the full inclusion of women in Jewish religious life by the non-Orthodox community is probably 1,000 years from now the thing historians are going to write about as the most fundamental and important change to Judaism in this era of the 20th and 21st centuries. It's huge that now we have a whole nother army of warriors to count. And there are many, many, many ways to lift up your head and be counted. And that's really the sermon, the message from me that I think is crucial right now. Now, I'd like to open it up and just, for this Torah portion, any questions about any of this, and then I want to broaden the conversation out much further. But please raise your hand or just unmute and let's talk about this. Go ahead, Merle.
When you say the Orthodox community, do they allow women to do much of anything other than raise children, be mothers, wives, and teach?
Well, I'm going to answer you as an Orthodox rabbi, which I'm not, but I'm going to pretend. First of all, there is greater inclusion of women in synagogue life in Orthodoxy now.
Okay.
We are starting to see something sort of like ordination I mean, it's very rare. I wouldn't say it's mainstream. I wouldn't even say it's universally or even close to universally accepted, but we are seeing some cracks of daylight. But generally speaking, Merle, I think an Orthodox rabbi would employ the separate but equal argument, despite the fact that it's not constitutional, which is that we have gender-based divisions of responsibilities as Jews. And now this is also the other interesting thing about a census, which I think is a beautiful and powerful idea, which is that every single person counts for their own unique abilities and contributions, but no one person counts for more than one. So we all have different contributions to make, but no one person's contribution is counted any differently than anyone else's. This is the paradox of a census. A census is essentially saying every single person matters, but every single person matters equally. It's this paradoxical message, and that's where I believe an Orthodox rabbi would come down on your question, Merle, which is each of us has our own unique tikkun, our own unique repair, our own unique contribution to make. but our contributions are of equal merit and weight, but they are not identical contributions. I think that a biologist would say to you that all mammals have a gender-based division of labor, which is true. That's how mammalian species survive. And I think that would be the answer. Personally, it's not my answer, obviously, but that would be the answer, and that is the worldview.
Thank you.
Separate but equal. And we know the problems with that, but that would be the response. Yeah, Karen, go ahead, unmute.
And in the Orthodox community, we are having a discussion, I would say a fight, in the when the young boys are studying Heder, they are exempt. And I think that there should be a consideration for when there are, especially like wartime, that everyone come and assist as long as they are physically able. But that's a personal opinion. And what do you believe or say?
And well, they would say that they are assisting and they are warriors for God, but their weapon is Torah and not an Uzi. I don't ask me to defend it. I can only articulate it. And there are differences. You know, women don't serve as long as men in the army, for example, although right now everyone who's capable has been called up from reserve duty, from Miluim. But this is the paradox. This is the duality. If every person counts and every person's contribution is equally weighted, then that gives people an awful lot of latitude in terms of how they choose to contribute.
But do you lose your religiosity just because you help your country? You still are an Orthodox person. You are not necessarily you don't change. You still can pray.
I'm not defending it.
No, I'm sorry.
One would say that studying all day in the yeshiva is not the same as being at war and davening in the morning and afternoon. You know, look, we also know that this is a result of the parliamentary system and the necessity of genuflecting for the extreme minority on the right or sometimes on the left in Israeli history, because you need those 60 seats. And that's the reality of parliamentary politics as well. Again, I'm not defending it. I'm illuminating it. Brad.
Yeah,
I love the sweatshirt. Love the sweatshirt.
We Wildcats have to stick together.
Yeah.
Rabbi, you know, I was watching the D-Day ceremonies. I hope I'm not off point here, but it was so interesting to me that, if I understood correctly, African Americans were basically not allowed to participate in the D-Day, other than as medics, for example. And it got me thinking about Israel and its Arab Israeli population and whether they have any role to play in the military.
Oh, many do. Many do. And the Druze also. And Druze are sort of a hybrid Christian Muslim sect. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
As combatants.
Yes.
Are they drafted?
Every Israeli citizen,
I see,
has to serve. Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, this is one of the things that frustrates us when Israel is accused of genocide against Arabs, when in fact the Arab population has increased in Israel from a few 100,000 to edging toward 2 million, and has increased in Gaza and the West Bank as well. So it's the opposite of genocide, but somehow, you know, the fact fact and fiction switch places very often in the Middle East. But the short answer is yes. They pay taxes, they vote. Yes. Is there discrimination in Israel? Yes, there is in America too. Who else we got? I'm going to open it up beyond the
There are a lot
Parshat.
of hands up.
Oh, I can't see. So
Oh.
I don't see. There we go. Ben. Then Cindy. Go ahead, Ben. Oh, I see the
Hey.
hands now. Those little, I got it. Sorry. Go ahead. And then
So
Gary,
ni-
you'll be after that, okay?
So nice to see you, Rabbi. And
You too,
two
Ben.
comments. Your background is amazing. I love that background. And then also go Wildcats. I'm married to one and my daughter's one. So
All right.
support those
Okay.
Wildcats. But just, your comments way back on the importance of the head or the rosh and what's being counted. And you said it so eloquently, Rabbi, no way I can be anywhere near that. But to me, it's the importance of each of us to be heard, to contribute, to participate, and that each of us has something to offer.
Yes. To count, to matter. Exactly.
And
The way the Talmud and Midrash put it is that unlike a mint that mints coins, and the goal is for each coin to be absolutely identical, God as creator has the opposite goal. For each and every single human being to be in some way or ways unique. And this paradox, this duality, this dichotomous tension exists in, as I said, in the very idea of a census. Everyone counts, but no one counts more than anyone else. You're everything and you're not everything. This lesson is taught again and again and again throughout Jewish history and throughout the rabbinic texts. And one of the most famous examples is this idea that every person should go through life with a saying in one pocket that says the world was created for me. In other words, I am unique and the world was created for me. I am minted unlike any other coin. And that goes in one pocket. In the other pocket, quoting Abraham, is the phrase, I am but dust and ash. And that the secret of life is to somehow live with a hand in each pocket. That I matter, but I don't matter more than anyone else. I'm important, but I'm no more important than anyone else. Life ends and therefore it matters. Life ends and therefore it doesn't matter. It's this is the stuff of existence. This is the humility, and arrogance has a negative connotation, but it's the word that's coming to my mind right now. This balance between humility and arrogance, between purpose and meaninglessness. We live with both, and if we're able to live with both, that's the goal of a balanced life. This strange combination of hubris and humility, either of which on their own, imagine a person who is whose entire worldview is I'm dust and ash. I don't matter. What I do is not of any worth. Imagine that existence. And then imagine the existence of a complete and total narcissist where the only thing that matters is me. And either side of that spectrum is horrible. It's a horrible life and bad for the world. So there is this balance that we're trying to achieve. And I think it's definitionally what a census is about. And I also think it's definitionally what being a good human being is about. So there you have it. I think Cindy, you're next.
Okay, I hope you can clarify. I have a recollection from a previous Torah study of being said you're not supposed to count people? So if you do, you're supposed to say not one, not two, not three. Is that right?
Are you referring to something that I said?
No, a different
Oh.
Torah study.
Yeah, I don't know who that was, but I don't understand the context. Now, I'll tell you what I have said
Okay.
when referring to the death of 6 million, that it isn't true that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. The truth is that one person died 6 million times.
Wow.
Right? Because to say 6 million people died is to eliminate the individuality and uniqueness of every single human being. By the way, just a round number immediately dehumanizes the victims. Right? When you say 6 million, it's not 6 million people died. We say 3,000 people died in 9/11. No, it was 3,271 or whatever the number was, right? And even the rounding up or rounding down of a number misses the point. And so what I have said before is we're closest to, I think, the truth when we say that it's one person died 6 million times. That's a very different way of looking at it. And I think it's the more Jewish way. Hope
Thank
that's
you.
helpful. Yeah, Gary, and then Ann.
I was going to say, I live in a very peculiar world today. I was raised a Reform Jew. My partner and soon-to-be wife is a conservative Jew. We belong to a conservative shul. And then she's also involved with Chabad out in Moore Park. So we get all these dichotomies or the separations between how everything is observed.
Mhm.
So in the conservative shul, where we're getting married, the rabbi accepts her get, even though she can't find it, because she's been known by the rabbi for years. In the Chabad world, we've got to prove that we're both Jews, because they want to do a kosher wedding after our first wedding, because they think they want to bless us in their community. And it's a very interesting separation.
Yes.
But we're being counted in 3 different areas, and the counting is different. So in the conservative shul, we had a discussion about how to treat the non-Jewish spouse, and they count them as part of the family, but they don't count them
As individuals.
as individuals, which is a very interesting
Right.
separation.
Right. So they count as a part of a family, but they don't have, I guess, to put it in secular terms, voting rights.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, and look, what Gary's pointing out, I think, is something we're all aware of in a less particular way, which is that Jews count other Jews differently, depending upon the movement. But I will say that this is not a new phenomenon, that Jews have had a caste system since day one of Kohen, Levi, and Israelite, that there were always people who counted different, who mattered more. I'll give you another simple example. You couldn't be on the Sanhedrin, which was the Supreme Court of the Jewish people, if you didn't have children, because you lacked a certain perspective that was important in order to be a judge. You can't run for president in the United States if you were not a natural born citizen. We do have these divisions. I'm not telling you we achieve any kind of great ideal. And I think what you're referring to, Gary, is just another part of that tension between everyone's equal and everyone is unique. And we have, that's the tension of it all. And I think it's kind of personally beautiful that we have room for both. I think Scott Galloway once said to me that the sign of intelligence is the ability to hold 2 truths at the same time. That's a sign of intelligence, not confusion or ambivalence. And the 2 truths we're talking about here are that every individual is unique and no one matters more than anyone else. They're both true. And so, you know, in your case, I don't care what synagogue you belong to, or what movement you're a part of. They're all the same and they're all different. Or as my friend Joe Telushkin likes to say, I don't care what movement you're a part of as long as you're ashamed of it. So that's just kidding. Okay, Anne, go ahead.
I want to wrap back to an earlier statement that you made and also ask for a referral to something, which is you were talking about full inclusion for women
Yes.
in, and we're talking about, I'd like to talk about the non-Orthodox evolution of that. And maybe there's a reference or some material or a book that you can give us that would be an interesting tracking of that, because I don't know when the timing of all of that started to happen.
Yeah.
Other than when I think about the birth of the Reform movement.
I mean, look, one could argue, again, under the separate but equal perspective, that women have always been included, just different roles. You know, there's a feminist Torah commentary published by the Women of Reform Judaism, which provides the feminist perspective on the role of women. And frankly, I could make a very good case for the idea that the female characters of the Torah are the primary drivers of change and the primary force behind Jewish continuity. Without their fingerprints overtly necessarily being on anything, you know. Who helps Jacob deceive his father? His mother does, right? She helps Jacob fool his blind father, Isaac. Rebecca is behind it. You know, who's behind Leah ending up in the tent the next morning next to Jacob as opposed to Rachel? Like, you could see women as the driver. In a funny way, it reminds me of that fantastic line in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which says, yes, the man is the head of the family, but the woman is the neck, and the neck turns the head. So I could make that case in Torah. So I'm just giving you this view of how far back this goes. One could say from the beginning, Eve, the first woman, changes all of human history. This is a myth we're talking about, of course, but she is the one who encourages the knowledge of good and evil. So I can prove it from day one, but historically, the full and real inclusion, I think you'd want to go back more than 100 years to the first bat mitzvah of Amy Kaplan, Mordechai Kaplan's daughter, and Sally Prezant, the first woman to be ordained at the Reform Seminary, Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, which was 53 years ago, not positive. And now I guest lectured at the seminary a few weeks ago to the third year class. It's a 5-year program. They were all women, all. So, you know, we've evolved quite a bit. I mean, almost to the point where we're now at almost as much of an imbalance as we were before the inclusion of women, because many men are just AWOL in Reform Jewish life and in the seminary. But there are plenty of books. Jonathan Sarna does a good job in American Judaism. His book, American Judaism, is quite good. Michael Meyer's book, The History of Reform, is just called Reform Judaism, Oxford University Press. He does a good job. A Reform rabbi in Germany in the 1860s, Samuel Holdheim was the first to allow a woman to speak from the pulpit. So you can thank the Enlightenment for that, 150 years ago. And it's hard
Very
to,
helpful.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
No, I just said this is very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
There's a lot. There's a lot of good history out there, and I mean, you can go on Amazon right now and you can find 10 books about it. But I happen to like Sarna a lot. I think he's very, very clever and sees patterns in ways most people do not. He teaches at Brandeis.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think, by the way, I really do think it's the single most important change in this period of Jewish history. And by period, I'm talking about several centuries. I'm talking about post-Enlightenment, 200 years. Brad, go ahead.
Rabbi, I want to come back to your comment about finding balance being the human condition.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's a particular Jewish dimension to that. And what I thought of right away was the famous French Catholic philosopher Blaise Pascal, who called a man a thinking reed, a reed who is buffeted by all the forces of nature. But on the other hand, his glory, the positive dimension is that he's the only one that knows what's happening to him because he is a thinking creature. So, I come back to the question about the finding balance,
Yes.
whether there is a particular Jewish dimension to that.
It is baked into Judaism as we know it. I'll give you some examples. We break a glass at the end of a wedding. So at these moments of supreme joy, we break a glass. Now, rabbis make up all kinds of reasons for why we break a glass, but there's really only one, which is it's a remembrance of the destruction of the temples. It's a remembrance of the tragedies and difficulties and calamities of Jewish history. So at the height of our joy, we dial it down. You'll see this. When do we do a Mishaberach? This prayer for people we love who are ill and suffering, right in the middle of the Torah service on Shabbat. At the height, the crown jewel of a Shabbat experience, we pause in the middle and dial down that joy to make room for the other truth. We say Kaddish when we're mourning. We feel so low, and yet we are commanded to stand. Number one, you don't say the Kaddish sitting down. You stand up when you feel like sinking into the ground. You have to say it in the presence of at least 9 other people. So you have to say it when you would rather be alone. And at this moment of profound loss, we're saying the Kaddish, which does not contain a single reference to death. It is entirely about the greatness of God. So there is always this counterweight in Judaism that is inserted or alongside of extreme joy and extreme sadness. There's always a counterweight. When we have Passover Seder, right? And we're recounting the plagues, the 10 plagues. We all take in our house, it's the little finger, but and you remove 10 drops from the glass. Why? To lessen your joy in remembrance of the suffering the Egyptians endured as a result of these plagues. There's another, I could go on, but there's also, if you go into an Orthodox home, you will see somewhere in the house, like a corner of a wall that is left unfinished, undone, unpainted, unwallpapered, and it's called Zecher L'Churvan, a remembrance of the destruction of the temple. It's the counterweight. And there it is baked into Judaism. And it's baked in also in a cultural way. Like whenever you said something good, like, oh, he's going to be fine. Ke'enahora, as long as the evil eye doesn't come, right? There's this counterweight. And then you spin around and spit over your shoulder or whatever your grandmother did. But even in the vernacular or in the folk culture, there's this counterweight to joy and counterweight to despair.
Judaism isn't the only place. It's an Asian culture as well.
Oh, of course.
Like when you have a piece of art and they tell you if you break a cup or something,
yeah,
everybody is quick to put glue on it. But actually, the beauty is in the breakage to respect the fact that we're human.
That's right. And there's yin and yang. And yes, I mean, this is all of existence, really. It really is. But my field is obviously Judaism, but I'm telling you, it is layered into Judaism everywhere. And I grew up with this ethos, like you could never be too, don't be too overt, don't be too public, don't be too, just keep your head down because something terrible could happen. There was a Yiddish expression, which I don't know the Yiddish of, that my father used to say, which was, I'm going to use a bad word, everyone, so please be prepared. The English translation was, even a cat could fuck it up. Now, what did that mean? It meant that if you're on a roll or something good's happening, you better be careful, because even the smallest thing could ruin it. That's the Jewish ethos. That's not a great, easy way to live, but that is the ethos. But it is also true that we have this Gamze Yavor idea that in the midst of sadness, what do we say? This too shall pass. And I think all of this is dialing in to this same exquisite tension that we feel as human beings. Dana, please. And then Susan, you're up after Dana.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Rabbi Leder. As you're talking, I'm thinking about how applying what you're saying to today, and it feels like the youth of today, college students, which includes my children's generation, don't have enough of this baked in. I mean, I have so much intergenerational trauma that I haven't forgotten anything. And, I know a lot of the details of the history of my family, but it feels like this upcoming generation doesn't know, doesn't remember, is, totally out of touch with this. So, maybe it served a survivor or a helpful purpose, this kind of thinking.
Yeah, well, I can give you the good news and the bad news since we're talking about dualities. Every human being, eventually, sooner or later, learns this lesson. All of us. And, my kids are older. My kids are at 32 and 35. And October 7th was a wake-up call for their friends. A real wake-up call. They could not believe. And I'm sorry for the wake-up call, but every generation of Jews gets a wake-up call. Every human being falls in love and has their heart broken. So your kids, my kids, all of our kids, we all get schooled at some point. And that's sad. And it's also very important.
Thank you for saying that. And along the same lines, first of all, your written commentary on today's Torah portion was published by email early today.
Usually good. It's already out. Wow. Yeah. They're faster than I thought. Wow.
No, usually it comes after the study session, like 3 o'clock or something. But
so you could read my cards this morning.
So, yeah, I already read. So what I like about what you said, and maybe you could address it today for the room and expand, is you did something which I think is your gift. This is what you did in your living room. What was that street you were on off of Robertson in that little apartment 36
Gregory
years
Way
ago?
and Ornez. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that little apartment, this is what you did, and this is what you still do, is you take the Torah portion of the week and you apply it to today and make it relevant and helpful and thoughtful advice for living in today's circumstances. So that's what you did in today's Torah portion in the writing. And so I wondered if you could talk more about applying this message that that we all count, or we all matter, or each individual contributes to keeping Judaism alive today.
Yes. Well, for those of you who read it, I gave a list. You know, the thing about a list when you're a writer is you want to be sure that every item on the list is somehow differentiated from every other item on the list. Otherwise, it's really just one thing expressed in 10 different words. And so I gave quite a list, which I would urge people to look at. I'm gonna answer in a roundabout way through the lens of Jewish mysticism. So I'm going to give you a 1-minute crash course in Jewish mysticism, and hopefully it'll be a good answer to your question, Dana. So there's a form of Jewish mysticism called the Lurianic, Lurianic, the Lurianic Kabbalah. It's named after Isaac Luria, who conceptualized existence in the following way. It's sort of a precursor to the Big Bang Theory. His notion is, and I'm simplifying, but his notion is that God's energy, the creative energy of God, was contained in a vessel of some kind. And that there was a cataclysmic event called Shvirat HaKelim, the smashing or breaking of the vessel, that then caused God's light to be fractured into sparks that scattered throughout the cosmos. And every human being, because every human being is unique, has their own unique tikkun, which means repair, their own unique spark to grasp and return to the vessel, to its source. I don't know what that is for each of us on this Zoom. You know what your gifts are. You know what your reach is. You know what your abilities are and what they are not. There is in each one of us this unique ability to make a difference. And the Buddhists, I've quoted this many times, the Buddhists have this idea of tending the part of the garden you can reach. That's why I said in the piece you read this morning, we can't all serve in the IDF. The last thing the IDF needs is a 64-year-old 5'5" Jew who, like, you know, huffs and puffs when he runs amok. They don't need me. It's not my tikkun. It's not my gift. It's not my thing. I know that, and they know that. So much of this idea is about finding our purpose and our unique set of talents and abilities to make a difference. And I think most people know what it is. Like if you ask most people, you know, what they want to do with their life or what they want to do for a living, this is especially true of children. I said this to the 6th graders yesterday at graduation, that asking what do you want to be when you grow up is the wrong question, because it implies that what we do is our tikkun, is our unique repair. The better question is, what did God make you good at? You ask a kid that question, you ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're going to shrug their shoulders, or they're going to say something unrealistic like a basketball player or whatever. You ask a kid, what are you good at? What did God make you good at? They can answer. They know. And then it's a question of honoring that blueprint and honoring that tikkun, that gift. So I'm not trying to be evasive when I throw it back to you and say, you know your tikkun, your gift. Use it. Use it toward the enterprise of the Jewish people or our country or your family or who knows, but use it. Dick, go ahead. Unmute though. You can do it, Dick. Come on. You went to law school.
There.
There you go. Good job.
Can I return to the mundane?
Yes, please.
Is there any chance, I don't know what your plans are for July. Is there any chance that now that Resnick is finished, and I assume has a room capable, that you might go in person?
That's a good idea. Maybe what we'll do is in person and live stream at the same time. I'll look into it.
Come back to the east side.
What? Oh, on the east side?
Come back to the east side.
Yeah.
Well, we have, okay, let me just say that we have every Sunday morning, we have a class on the east side. And every Saturday morning, we have a class. Well, right now, Stanley's not feeling too well, but generally speaking, we have a class every Saturday morning on the west side at Resnick. But we haven't done this Friday afternoon thing, which we do weekly on Zoom. So ever since the COVID days, and they kicked us out of CAA and don't want us back, frankly, but they were awfully generous for a lot of years. But Dick, I'll look into it. I know we
did women's Torah study as a hybrid this week, and Hannah just made it work. It was great.
There's got to be a way, right? I mean, all that money we spent, there's got to be a way. So we'll figure it out. Cindy's given us hope. That's a good idea.
Hannah did it.
Hannah, you give us hope. Yeah.
He had something called an owl, and it just was amazing.
I know. Yeah, it is. I know what that is. Yep.
Does that include you, Steve?
Does it include me as the owl? No, if I'm scheduled to teach, I'll do it in person.
Yeah, but but it's too hard. You're too many weeks away.
No, I'm not. No, I think I'm here most of July. Honestly, I don't have my calendar open in front of me, but Dick, it's a point well taken. I think we should get back to being in person and live. I mean, we'll do a parallel universe, right? Since we're talking about dualities today.
And maybe the lunch too, because when you came on a few minutes late, we all started talking and getting to know each other. And that was reminding me of the half-hour lunch we used to have before the study group.
I think it's a great idea. Okay, Michaela, please unmute. And hello.
Hi guys. I'm Michaela, and I feel like this is relevant to what Dana was saying. I'm a millennial, so I'm not college age. I'll be 30 this month. But I did want to speak on what you had asked about of like, you know, young kids kind of not knowing what's happening. And then Rabbi Leder said that, you know, we all have an awakening, and Rabbi Leder probably remembers that I to temple right after October 7th because I grew up like just, you know, Jewish, California Jews who were like, we're proud to be Jewish. We do Hanukkah and gifts and light the menorah, and like, that's it. And we attend other people's Seders. And so I can definitely tell you that October 7th was a wake-up call, in addition to the fact that I was a human rights major in college, and I went to Poland for 10 days and visited all of the Holocaust sites and Auschwitz. And I also did the same in Austria and the Czech Republic. But in Poland, like, there were people crying day 1, day 2. And I remember thinking, like, why is this not evoking more emotion from me, especially when my old therapist is a Holocaust survivor? So I was like, what's going to happen? And he was like, it'll hit you when it hits you. For me, it was late in the week. It was at Auschwitz, and I just was never the same. It was very traumatic while also, you know, being very important, but I can tell you that I got back in touch with my Judaism because of October 7th. So I think a lot of that generation will be traumatized the way that I carry intergenerational trauma as well. And Rabbi Leder, I wanted to say that the human rights motto is there is no such thing as a lesser person.
Right.
And so that's the motto of my major at SMU. And
yeah,
I think it
and by the
goes
way,
hand in hand.
This is one of the important fundamental tenets of Judaism as well, which is there is no hierarchical value to life. Whether you have 10 minutes to live or 10 decades to live, your lives, those two lives are of equal value.
Yep.
This works its way into Jewish halakha, Jewish law, when it comes to capital punishment, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to war, when it comes to poverty. It's just embedded in the DNA of Judaism, this idea that all life is of equal value. And this is why for some Jews it's so problematic when we say things like Jewish lives matter, Black lives matter, these lives matter. Though, yes, but every life matters. And Dick Riordan, who was, I thought, a fantastic guy and a great mayor. I liked him very much. One time I asked him about sort of his guiding principle when he was mayor. And he quoted a philosopher whose name I cannot recall, who said, whose way of envisioning government was to govern with the following: I am important and everyone else is just as important. And that's what Dick said to me about how he tried to behave as mayor. And it is profoundly Jewish to proceed through life in that way.
I agree.
Yeah. So I remember the day you walked into shul. You sat in the back, second to last.
Yep.
I know.
And then you came and you asked me about my tattoo, and then you said, "Welcome home." And now I'm in my literal home with all of you.
Yeah.
So I'm home.
Welcome home. Welcome home, Michaela. I can't think of a better way to end. I want to wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful Shabbos. And also one that makes room for the challenges we're facing as a people right now. I wish all of you had been with me at 9 o'clock this morning downstairs in the sanctuary where we graduated our nursery school from this campus. And you won't see a more hopeful sight in your life than all of those happy kids and their happy parents and grandparents. So I'm an optimist about our future. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for being with me. And hopefully
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Hopefully next time in person. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks.